You go back to the January 10th message when he instituted the surge. He said, we will, in partnership with Maliki, we'll do the military part and bring about a lessening of the severe security threats. That will enable you to have, and I quote him, breathing space. And now, Mr. Maliki, you do the political reconciliation. And with the convergence of those two actions, we hope to bring about a greater stability for Iraq. But the government, under the leadership of Maliki and other Iraqi leaders, have totally failed to put the other part of that partnership in place, namely deliver greater security.
Is the headline
and reconciliation? Is
the headline Warner to Bush, withdraw troops and get Maliki's attention?
That's correct.
Pulling back 5,000 troops or 10,000 troops to send a message to Maliki, I don't think it's going to have any impact on Maliki at all. I think you need to change the rules of the game, not just try and move around the chess pieces. We need to be playing a different game.
By any objective standard, the one thing that there is broad bipartisan agreement on in the United States Senate is that the Iraqi government has been a huge disappointment.
The Iraqi government has fallen by the wayside. They're a very weak central government.
Maliki, who has been clearly a weak leader.
The Iraqi government is still pretty much a disaster.
The National Intelligence Estimate expresses serious doubts about the ability of the Prime Minister, Nouri al-Maliki's government.
Everybody agrees the politics are working. I mean, even people who come back and say, oh, the security's much better, which sounds like something of an exaggeration, but they say, but political situation, terrible.
You said Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki has squandered Iraq's credibility in Arab politics, and he cannot restore it.
I mean, is this guy our ally?
I think you need to accept that the Blue Finger Day was a disaster, and you need to have new elections.
There are 36 ministries in the cabinet in Iraq. 17 have withdrawn support from the government and don't even attend cabinet meetings.
Half of Maliki's cabinet has abandoned his government. Are his days numbered?
His days are certainly numbered. This government is going to collapse.
The Maliki government is falling apart.
It was said the Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. Maliki's national unity government is barely national. There's no unity. It's hardly a government in the sense that no essential services are provided.
This is an incompetent government.
I think we have a right to be critical.
They deserve to be criticized.
I think the criticism is fair.
At the end of the day, the real test is, are they moving toward a political compromise? Because there cannot be stability in Iraq without it.
Do you think they are?
No.
It is past time for change at the top of the Iraqi government. Without that, no American military strategy or orderly withdrawal will succeed, and Iraq and the region will be left in chaos.
You've got Democrats, Republicans, and Alawi all going after Maliki. And the only person really standing with Maliki at this moment is the President of the United States. And Maliki is not a very popular person, someone who has not delivered by all accounts. And the President really is the only one standing with him right now.
I think the big news in August, frankly, is that the critics of the surge are now going to Iraq over this past month and admitting that the surge is working. So we've had military progress. There's no question about that.
Yes. There has been some stabilisation, some spectacular examples like in Al-Anbar province. Yes, it's forced changes in the type of violence that we're seeing here. But Iraqi innocents are still dying in their hundreds and thousands every month. And what we're failing to address is how are we achieving these successes in bringing down the violence? It's by cutting a deal with the tribes, the Baathists and the Sunni insurgents. It's by creating Sunni militias to counteract the government's own militias and the Iranian-backed militias.
What Petraeus has actually done, which has been brilliant in its own way, is he has bypassed the issue of national reconciliation by not accommodating the Sunnis, but arming them. I mean, that is where most of the progress in Anbar has come from. We've simply said, we're going to give you arms.
That's bound to have long-term consequences.
Now, the problem with that is, again, if you don't have reconciliation, one day we're going to leave, and now you have armed both sides of a civil war.
In many ways, part of what's being achieved is because America is turning somewhat, despite its rhetoric, against this government, fostering Sunni militias, questioning the role of this government, questioning whether it can actually perform. And we heard Ambassador Crocker just the other day say that if Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki does not deliver, then American support is not at the end of a blank check.
Joe Klein in Time magazine wrote this, that U.S. Ambassador to Iraq Ryan Crocker said, quote, "The fall of the Maliki government, when it happens, might be a good thing." And then Klein asked, but replace it with what?
In Back to the Future mode, the name being mentioned these days is Ayad Alawi.
Dr. Alawi certainly is shaping himself as one of the key candidates, but I've known Dr. Alawi for years. He's been shaping himself that way since I've known him.
So can I assume that you would like to be Prime Minister again?
It's not a matter of liking Wolf, it's a matter of changing the political landscape. I wouldn't, frankly, want to become a Prime Minister in a sectarian regime. But I would play my role in Iraq with whatever capacity is required to change Iraq into a non-sectarian country, to a peaceful country, to a democratic, really democratic country.
All right, I'll assume that that means yes.
Let's have a look at Dr. Alawi's past. In the mid-1990s, he and the CIA attempted a coup d'etat against Saddam Hussein. Then last year, in the summer, I interviewed Dr. Alawi, and at that time he told me Iraq did not have a real democracy, and perhaps it had come too quickly for Iraq to digest. He was saying the system was failing.
The system of running the government on sectarian basis, the system of running the government on non-reconciliation with the various groups in Iraq. We want to change the sectarian system. I am doubting the system.
Then in February this year, he told me he'd just returned from Washington, D.C., where he told American policymakers that if the surge does not work, you need to consider installing an emergency government. Now, Dr. Alawi told me that the response from the administration was not a yes, but it was not a no.
There was stories, as you know, in Washington this week that you've retained the services of a prominent Republican-linked Washington lobbying firm, Barbara Griffith and Rogers, to do some public relations work for you here in the United States.
That's right. This is a Republican lobbying firm founded by Haley Barbour, the former Republican National Committee Chairman, the current Mississippi governor. And these are Republican lobbyists very close to this White House. That's why it's embarrassing to them to have these Republican lobbyists working for Alawi, who's trying to force out Maliki, who, as we all know, the president took great public pains once again this week to clarify that he's fully behind Maliki. So that's a potential political problem when you've got even Republicans now working against Maliki.
I want to save Iraq. I want to save the mission of the United States. I am building a plan. Because the crucial role of the United States, we are asking this firm to help us to advocate our views. This payment is made by an Iraqi person who is a supporter of the of us, of the INA, of myself, of our program. And he have supported this wholeheartedly without any strings to attached.
Certainly, he's been close to certain American security agencies. They've certainly bet on him in the past. And indeed, during the attempted coup d'etat in the 1990s, he did that with another Iraqi who had left Saddam's regime, General Mohammed Abdullah al-Shawani. General Shawani is currently the head of the Iraqi intelligence service, an intelligence service run and funded by the CIA, over which the Iraqi government has no control whatsoever.
We are going to fight for our country. We are going to continue our belief in the political process, and we would look to the support of the United States.
I think that's something for them to decide, not for us to decide.
It's a democratically elected government, and I don't think we can dictate to them who they choose.
The notion that if Maliki goes and everything will be fine, I think misses the point that the institutional capacity in Iraq, the ability to do simple things, make contracts, provide simple service to the people, that's not present after 4 years. This is a much more serious problem than just one individual.
The goal of the surge was to provide the Iraqi government with enough space to get itself up, and also the clear objective stated by the president was that by December or November, I can't remember which month, I think it was November actually, that the Iraqis would be in control of all the provinces in Iraq. Those are not going to happen.
The the whole premise of the surge when President Bush announced it was this would buy space and time for the Iraqi government to take those political steps necessary. And as the NIE indicates, those steps haven't been taken, and they're unlikely to be taken.
But I do believe the surge itself, as the National Intelligence Estimate says, has worked over the last 6 months.
If you read the National Intelligence Estimate, by the standard General Petraeus has set, it's very bad news. General Petraeus has said, we are here to buy time for reconciliation. We're paying for that in the coin of American blood and treasure, and it's not buying reconciliation. Therefore, how do you say, as people do, that we now know that Petraeus' surge is a success when by Petraeus' own standards, it's not working?